This video conference is made possible by a grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Hello, I'm Ray Suarez.
And I'm Opal Comfort.
Can diversity in organizational development be the key to meeting public broadcasting's coming challenges?
And will diversity in organization development reshape public broadcasting for the next decade?
Diversity.
What is it?
Managing change.
Who does it?
A video conference presented by the National Association of Blacks in Public Broadcasting.
Public broadcasting's workforce has been deeply affected by funding cuts, downsizing, and outside criticism.
This comprehensive video conference will examine the current situation and offer tools for valuing a diverse workforce and effectively managing change.
Joining us to discuss diversity and how it affects public broadcasters are Michelle Senegal of Management Dynamics, Ebby Monteith of North Carolina Public Television, Tom Porter of Blacks in Public Broadcasting, Al Templeton of the NTL Institute for Applied Behavioral Sciences, and Steve Robinson of Nebraska Public Radio.
Today, during our live video conference, we'll be talking to our distinguished audience and accepting calls from public broadcasting stations around the nation.
Michelle, why don't we start this conversation really at the beginning with the fundamentals. Tell us what diversity is.
Diversity simply means difference, but it's a very, very complex issue when you look at the various dimensions of diversity. To illustrate my point, let's take a look at the graphic here. Primary dimensions of diversity include age, race, ethnicity, gender, physical qualities and ability, and sexual orientation. There's another level of dimensions which we call secondary dimensions of diversity, and they include things like organizational culture, personality, military experience, religious beliefs, geographical location, background, thinking styles, and education.
I guess the most obvious difference between the things in the outer ring and the things in the inner ring are the ones in the inner ring are things that you basically are, things you can't change. You
Absolutely.
can move, but you can't change gender.
That's correct.
And how do those two different rings affect what managers have to do when looking across a workforce to think about diversity?
Most companies who initiate diversity programs focus on the inner circle, the primary dimensions. Those are the ones that are immutable, cannot be changed. They're also the ones that there is legislation to protect those various groups. So our contention is if managers effectively value and respond to the diversity within the primary dimensions, the secondary dimensions take care of themselves. A sensitivity level and awareness level have already been raised by that point.
Tom Porter, I think a lot of managers would say, well, it's reasonable. The demand for diversity is something that I've thought about, and I think it's important. But what's standing in the way of every workplace in public broadcasting being more diverse?
Fear, for the most part, the fear of change, the fear of the uncertainty in the fact in the workplace, fear of working with those and bringing people into your workplace who are different, and the fear of the upheaval that could come about as a result of your staff's insecurities about the loss of their jobs, insecurities about having people come in who may come in at a step above them. And the other issue is the whole economic issue. Public broadcasting is going through a lot of changes. Congress is threatening to cut back. And that makes, whenever that happens, people get real tight, real insecure, real fearful.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of managers who'd say, I'm not afraid of anything except the station going under. But, Tom, I haven't been able to add anybody to my staff in the last 5 years. How am I supposed to make it more diverse?
Well, I think the way you make it more diverse is, I don't think, what usually happens is that we tend to cut back. We tend to talk about letting people go. I think diversity not only adds to the creative nature of an organization, but it also opens up in new possibilities. And I think that's something that managers don't really think enough about, is how can I improve, advance what I'm doing? Because what we hear all the time now is cutbacks, shrinkage, downsizing.
Steve Robinson, talk about the importance of diversity to Nebraska Public Radio, and tell us some of the ways that we might be able to see it in action, in programming, in your board, if you were to bring us over to Lincoln.
Where it's especially important in a state like Nebraska, where there isn't much ethnic diversity in the population. I think maybe we're talking under 5%. We feel that we have a leadership role to play, because we are statewide, in making people aware and informing them about different cultural groups. And we do that in a very deliberate fashion, where we refuse to have a format that is all classical and news, which is a very popular format in public radio. We break that format whenever possible with programs that deal with Native Americans or certain Hispanic American, certain incident that occurred, where we do extensive programming. And we do that to try to attract new listeners to the station who might, as I tell my board when I do this, appreciate the music that we do play. So programming is very important to us. We've also, and this is another thing we have control of, we've been able to make sure that the boards have good representation from minority groups on it, and we've been successful at that. The third area, which is our own staff, has been much more difficult for us to bring about change, because of the fact that we haven't had a lot of people applying for the jobs that have come open, and that's been the most difficult area for me.
Do you think you have a different level of obligation from a commercial broadcaster serving the same market that you are to bring these kind of changes about?
Well, generically, I mean, our mission is to challenge people, and to, you know, our mission is different than commercial broadcasters, and so generically, yes, but I see that as a mandate and part of our mission, very definitely.
Ebby Monteith, I understand that your station has put in place a diversity structure that works and is being seen in other places as a model. Tell us about North Carolina.
Ray, I would characterize our station's diversity efforts as working. We began a concerted diversity effort about '93. We got a new general manager, and Tom Howell brought with him an expectation that we would do better planning, both short-term and long-term. With an all-staff input forum, we began to build a long-range plan. That plan evolved into basically 4 goal areas, and my own favorite, workplace, includes a diversity objective. And the onset of addressing that objective included the formation of a diversity committee. This is a group of staff, cross-departmental lines, diverse itself, who strategized around issues of recruitment, hiring, programming, and then most recently being a more welcoming place. And that's how we came to know Michelle and Management Dynamics, and provided some all-staff training in the areas of diversity, and met Tom, who helped us out, and the rest is history.
Well, that diversity committee, do they always have something to do, even in a time when the pie is perceived to be shrinking?
Well, I must confess that I'm here to participate and support. I'm also here to learn, because we need a next level to proceed to in terms of what will be our direction and focus. And so I'm actually looking to this forum for some ideas.
Well, Al Templeton, we've been talking about diversity and managing change as 2 different things. Are they really?
No, I don't think so at all. I think it's basically what we're hearing here. They're inseparable. If an organization is looking at managing the change process, given the climate in today's work culture, it's critical to examine the similarities and differences of people in that work culture as part of the change process. So you can't have one here and one here in a sort of neat way. It's a much more organic circumstance. And the way we're seeing diversity now, as Michelle said, difference, is many of us are given to think of diversity as being differences in race, and even in that context, it's seen primarily as differences between blacks and whites, which is not at all the whole case. Or we see diversity as an issue of gender. And there's so many more ways in which people are different. As the pie chart showed us, age, sexual orientation. There are also things like personality difference, section of the country in which you were raised, which language you speak as a first language. All of that goes to make up the organic substance that constitutes the workplace. And to initiate a change process without an awareness of what all of that difference means and what it brings to the workplace and what opportunities are inherent in that would not really be a very solidified change process. So I think basically they're inseparable.
Yet managing change, especially now as the system is passing through a crisis period, is being portrayed as getting the ship through a storm with as many hands as you can save, making it through the storm. It's not seen as a growth strategy. And commercial broadcasters through the 80s often achieved diversity by growing and by turnover, two things that don't mark public radio staffs quite often as you move from state to state, as you move from station to station, both in television and radio. We haven't been able to diversify through growth, and we haven't been able to diversify through turnover. And it doesn't look like we're moving into a period where we're going to be able to use either of those strategies either. So this may be the toughest time of all. How do you work with a situation like this?
You seize every opportunity to diversify. It's true that we're not experiencing the same level of growth that organizations have experienced historically. However, whenever there is an opportunity to fill a position, we ask the question, did you diversify your candidate pool? Did you hire from that pool? That's considered an opportunity. We evaluate the effectiveness of our diversity initiatives by how many of those opportunities we seized. Missed opportunities or lost opportunities are focused on as well. We have dialogue around that. You had an opportunity. Did you do the outreach that was necessary to diversify that pool? What was your selection criteria? Why didn't all of the candidates, get equal consideration? So there is more dialogue that's going on to hopefully increase the number of times that diverse individuals are put into the fewer positions that are now available.
I think as public broadcasting is forced to meet the challenge of the new communications environment that we're in, they're going to find new ways, have to find new ways to do things, to advance what they do. And I think they're going to find that by diversifying, that's going to increase their audiences and increase their bottom line. And I think that's how it's really going to take place. It's meeting its challenge. Public broadcasting is simply not the only game in town anymore and the kind of things that it's been known for in the past.
But we work for visible public institutions. And I'm sure if I was a general manager, Tom, and you came to see me and I said, we have a great decade-long plan. You just see if we aren't in better shape in the year 2005. Wouldn't you at that meeting tell me, look, I just can't wait 10 years?
That's right.
Yeah.
He can't either.
I think, too, we have to go beyond, in terms of, Michelle, you're talking about diversifying the candidate pool, and that's fine. And I think, though, a lot of institutions make sure that the job opening is sent to the politically correct mailing lists, and they sort of let it go at that. And I think we have to go a step beyond that, and if we're really serious about attracting skilled people to the staffs, to engage in some training of our own, to engage in internships, and really take a very proactive role in making sure that those candidates are going to be there.
Definitely, and those are ongoing efforts. You don't do it at the time that you have positions available. You do it on an ongoing basis. You're continuously sourcing so that you have a pool to choose from at the time that you have available positions. So absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah, and I want to build on those points. I think it's also critical to pay attention to what those positions are. Because one of the reasons that we find ourselves in a place now where we're saying what is our promotable pool of people is we over the years have brought women and people of color into positions in the organization that were not promotable into the higher ranks. So as people have gained some seniority and moved through, we still have that same inequity. So at the same time that we're saying, are you